Yep. Is U.S. immigration policy killing entrepreneurship? We'll talk with an MIT professor about that. We'll also talk with Darlena McElroy about her battle versus the Department of Human Services. And Ying Sa with Community CPA and Associates will join us to answer tough tax questions.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
On March 28th, Equal Justice After Hours is Iowa Legal Aid's annual fundraiser that helps provide access to justice for low-income Iowans. The event includes a reception and program at the Temple for the Performing Arts in Des Moines. It also includes remarks by Georgetown University law professor Peter Edelman and the induction of Robert Oberbilling into the Iowa Legal Aid Hall of Fame. Tickets start at $50 and sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Terry Bennett at tbennett@iowalaw.org. That's tbennett@iowalaw.org.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Thank you, Brother Trucker, for kicking off our conversation today here on the Fallon Forum. I want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility, the Iowa chapter. I also want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club. And I want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our program. And I want to thank Bill Owlett for joining us. He is associated with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Bill, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ed.
You know, my daughter works in immigration, and she came across this article and thought it was of interest to me. And she is right. It's very much of interest to me because I've been arguing that our whole approach to immigration in this country is, in fact, bad for business, not just big business, but small business as well. And that seems to be kind of the direction you're coming at this issue from.
Absolutely, Ed.
So tell me, I guess, tell our audience a little bit about your background. You're calling us from probably Cambridge, Massachusetts?
Cambridge, Massachusetts, yes. Well, my background is I'm an accidental academic because I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I started out actually in a large company, IBM, where I worked for 11 years.
I've heard of them.
And this was back in the 1980s. And then when I came back to MIT for a graduate degree, I thought about this concept of starting a company, and then I actually started one while I was here. And I left IBM, which nobody left. That was like leaving the mafia. It was just something you didn't do.
Wait, because they would come after you and take you out if you left? Or
No. It was just back in the day, when you had a job for life at IBM. And I'll get to that a little later. Is that those times have changed?
I'm not sure I'd recommend that mafia analogy too many occasions.
Well, it was just something you didn't leave. We'll say then.
Gotcha.
But because no one left IBM at that point, but it was I wanted to do something more. I'd grown up kind of middle class, and I felt, boy, I want to start something. I'd been a basketball player. And so I started a company, and as I joke, it's in stealth mode. That means it failed. But I was addicted. I was addicted to it. Well, that's how you learn, actually.
Yeah. And again, what did the business do?
It made simulation models for academic institutions and academic medical centers to show them what decisions they could make, and if they made them, should they raise the tuition, and if they did, what would happen. And it taught me the value of systems, really, because people would raise this tuition, and it would seem like their finances got better in the short term, but in the long term, they got much worse. And then when you looked at our model, you could understand, because we did a complex systems analysis and built the model, that if you raised the tuition, you actually got the best students started going to other schools. They would stop. And then your dropout rates would go up, and then your reputation would go down, and you start getting in a negative feedback loop.
And how do you tie that in with the bigger issue of entrepreneurship and America's immigration policy for us?
Yeah. So, then I just to fast forward quickly, I then did two other startups after that, which were very successful. And then I was teaching at MIT, and then they said one day, "Hey, would you be willing to run the center?" And so when I came back here, I started looking at things with a lot more, rigorous eye, and I noticed something that was interesting. First of all, that most entrepreneurs were defective in some way. They had some demons running around their body. There was something different. If you were perfect back when I was growing up, you became the president of General Motors or IBM or something like that. And the people who weren't were kind of like Steve Jobs or Larry Ellison or something like that.
Right.
And they were different. But they did, and today we recognize the great benefit that people like Steve Jobs and Larry Ellison and Bill Gates have on the world. And you notice kind of a profile. There was a professor, a very famous professor at MIT named Ed Schein, who did this with the founder of Digital Equipment. But then I started to realize, and we looked at it, is that immigrants were starting a disproportionate number of the companies. And once I realized that, it became more and more clear. And one of my colleagues said, it's hard to be a great entrepreneur if you have a full belly. And so whether it's full belly from a standpoint of food or financial or emotional, but to be an entrepreneur, especially back in the past, you really had to have an incredible drive. It's like great athletes,
Well, it's like revolutions as well. Revolutions aren't fomented by people who are well fed.
Yeah, well fed or well adjusted.
Yeah. Hey, folks, we're talking with Bill Owlett. He's calling us from the Mass Institute of Technology in Cambridge today. We're discussing entrepreneurship and U.S. immigration policy. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can ring us at 244-0077. Toll free, it's 855-244-0077. And you can always email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. And Bill, before we wrap up this segment in a bit, I got to tell you my own MIT connection, but continue with what you were saying.
Well, just to bring it full circle is, I looked at, and the more I saw this was that immigrants played a huge role in it, and our immigration policy was making it hard for these people who were literally the job creators. A lot of my students are from outside the United States,
right?
But we were kicking them out of the country, and they would go to these other countries, and they would start companies, would employ hundreds of people.
Right.
So it was, and the first order, it looked like, well, they might take someone else's job, which wasn't true. They were actually going to create jobs. And the study, the Kauffman Foundation study that was done shows that jobs are created by these entrepreneurs who don't start just small, pizza stands and dry cleaners. Those things are great, but these innovation-driven companies, and that's where over 2/3 of the jobs that are created come from. So
I can relate to this personally and in my local community here, Bill. This program, we have about a dozen, 15 maybe business sponsors. Two of the businesses have been created by immigrants. One of them is a woman named Ying Sa, who it took her like 12 years to get her full immigration status sorted out so she could actually become a citizen. But she's been a great asset to our community for almost 2 decades, and founded an accounting firm that has grown to be, I think, the 15th largest accounting firm in the entire state. The other guy I'm thinking of is a very, very new entrepreneur. He's from Bangladesh, and his wife is here studying medicine. He needed something to do with his time, so he opened a restaurant that is catering to local foods, and he gets about 90% of his food from Iowa farms and local producers. So, I hear what you're saying. Some of the best ideas, some of the most successful entrepreneurial investments are happening from folks who are here newly and have a lot of energy and some ideas that that we need to incubate those ideas.
Yes, absolutely. It's in our interest for sure.
So, how specifically U.S. immigration policy, because it has been so much focused on cracking down on people here, on deporting folks. Is that the main reason why it has been detrimental to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's been the third rail. No one could talk about immigration, and it came down to someone's taking somebody else's job. So, being this third rail, they could never get into this more intelligent conversation about, well, they aren't taking jobs, and there's these H-1B visas,
right?
And so. It just was a political hot button that people couldn't talk about.
Would you say that in all cases, are there any cases in which immigrants are taking jobs? I think of the meatpacking industry here in Iowa, and those used to be union jobs that paid a very livable wage, and really it was IBP, previously called IBP, of course, that found a way to use taxpayer money to subsidize its ability to drive the wages down, to drive the unions out, and then to go actively recruit immigrants from Mexico in particular to come and take those jobs. So, some here would feel that, in that case, in the case of the meatpacking jobs, immigrant labor, with the help of an unscrupulous corporation, was able to take what used to be a good-paying union job and eliminate it.
Yeah, that's correct, Ed. You have to put boundary conditions around this. When we say an entrepreneur, they have to have a certain skill set that's unique, and there have to be criteria that they're not just calling themselves an entrepreneur so that they can get a green card in the United States. There have to be criteria around it. You're absolutely right. Yeah. It could be misused.
So how do you feel about the current immigration debate? What's shocking to me is we're having a bipartisan conversation. Now, we did have one of those back when George W. Bush was president, but the crazies on the right-wing radio dial basically killed that conversation. That hasn't happened yet. We seem to be seeing some momentum. What do you think in terms of the details that are beginning to emerge on the proposed immigration policy changes? Would those help in terms of nurturing an entrepreneurial environment?
Ed, I want to just reiterate, I am shocked at how quickly things have changed. The discussion has become extremely productive at this point. It's been depoliticized as much as you possibly can imagine. This, to me, in some sense, not being political, that this could be the best thing that came out of this last election.
Yeah, and again, I would caution. There are some crazies in the U.S. House. We have one of them from Iowa, and He's no fan of immigrants and no fan of anything resembling a reasonable immigrant policy. His idea is to build as tall a fence as possible, ring it with as much razor wire as possible, and then to draw comparisons to how we fence in cattle and other animals. So at some point, I'm concerned that those voices are going to rise to some level of prominence and kill any effective efforts at reform.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it was last night or the night before on the Daily Show. They had those very talks about presidential candidates, contesting with each other how they were going to be tougher, build a bigger wall, have more electricity, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we had a lot of that in Iowa last year.
But all that's gone. I mean, it's just shocking, as you said, in such a positive way that we're talking about comprehensive immigration reform. And I do have to say, again, I'm not. This isn't a political thing. I'm very impressed with the current administration. They came up here, they spent time, they sat down with us. They wanted to hear the real story, and they wanted to understand the facts, not just what would happen in the short term, but what would happen in the medium term and the long term. And as I talked about my first company, you have to think about not just first order effects, but second and third order effects in this, because the problem has been people just think immigrants are taking Americans' jobs, and there are certain immigrants that we should treasure, and because they're creating more jobs,
engineers and
people who are truly entrepreneurial. I mean, especially engineers. But by the way, the interesting thing is, since I wrote that article with Professor Matt Marks,
right?
Canada has come out full stop and said they now have an entrepreneur's visa, and they have a marketing campaign to attract the talented entrepreneurs and technical people from the United States in Silicon Valley, and pull them up to Toronto or any place in Canada. But Toronto was the place that they were really focused on. And by the way, so is England now has an entrepreneur's visa, and they're going to be this battle for this talent. We can't, if we choose to ignore it, we do so at our own risk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the interesting allies in the conversation about sustainable and broad immigration reform is the Cato Institute, which is very much a free market, conservative think tank that does not believe in restricting the flow of capital or labor. And I think there's some sense to that. My big concern again goes back to what I was saying about IBP. And in agriculture is a good example. It is possible for big, agricultural efforts. Here in Iowa, we have seen, for example, hog production shift from small farmers to big corporate entities, many of them headquartered out of Iowa, and many of them bringing in immigrant labor to man facilities that used to be owned and operated by family farmers. So to the extent that any immigration reform makes that problem worse, I'm concerned. But to the extent that it really helps make a system work a lot better for the immigrants who are coming here in most cases for very legitimate reasons, and to the extent that it can help infuse some new life, some blood, some new ideas, some entrepreneurship in small business development, I think that's a good thing. I just hope we can find the balance between those two.
I couldn't agree more with you, Ed. I mean, now being closing in on 60, I have to be a bit cynical when these ideas sometimes get hijacked by big lobbyists.
Yeah, well, this is true.
Lobbying, that the fundamental concept is correct here. We need to get those entrepreneurs who create jobs, who have skills, and keep them here. But if it gets hijacked by big lobbying firms, it can be misused. So I share your concern, but I think that we have to find a way to make this work.
Yeah.
The big companies are not going to create the jobs. It's the entrepreneurs who create the jobs.
Thank you. That's an important message right there. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. And I got to tell you, I used to be a member of the Cambridge Sports Union. After my first 2 years of college, I took off time to go be a jazz musician in Boston, joined the Cambridge Sports Union to try to improve my half-mile time and train for the decathlon. And where I trained was at MIT.
Well, you did, right?
Yeah.
What, the Kresge Center? Where'd you train?
I don't know what it was called. It was close to the river.
It was called.
All right. Well, and we used to walk across Mass Ave, walk across the Charles River. Oh. And I used to enjoy that walk because the bridge had been measured by some inebriated MIT students using some other student. They used a drunk student who had passed out. His name was Smoot, and they measured the bridge in smoots.
Let me give you just one other thing.
Okay.
I'm very happy to know, and I don't think many Hawkeyes know. MIT issues a pirate certificate. So students here who pass the phys ed requirement for fencing, rowing, sailing, and riflery are issued by MIT a pirate certificate. I don't think there's any other university. Do the Hawkeyes do that?
No, and you know, we're not close enough to the water, and also we have more sense than that, Bill. I mean, come on, do you really want to encourage pirate entrepreneurship?
As I say, we have to have the spirit of a pirate. And we have to have the discipline of a Navy SEAL Team 6.
There you go. And by the way, I also have a brother who works at Draper Lab at MIT.
Great.
And he had his own business as well. He created a different kind of simulator, one that basically, that it tests baseball bats for various qualities that are required for ML Major League Baseball.
Yeah. This is a beautiful thing. If you have entrepreneurs, there's no shortage of opportunities. Yeah. No shortage. I mean, if I took you through, and you can go to our website at entrepreneurship.mit.edu, you'll see some of the craziest ideas that come up. Flying cars, bouncing balls that you throw into burning buildings to find out, what's going on. But really, there's no shortage of opportunities. So what we need to unleash is the human spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship.
Well, thank you, Bill. We'll keep an eye on the immigration debate, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Ed. And hello to all those Hawkeyes out there.
All right. Good to hear. Folks, I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway grocery store, of course, with lots of food from local sources, but also a great place to dine, breakfast, lunch, and supper. And I will be checking out the supper offerings tonight. Again, supper for two, under $20, and that includes beverages, wine even. So it's a great buy as well as great quality. Check them out, folks. That's Gateway Market and Cafe at 20th and Woodland. Keep your money in the local community. I'll be back in a minute when we start talking about a major crazy issue. I mean, I worked on a lot of DHS stuff when I was a lawmaker, and I don't know if I've seen a problem this frustrating as the one Darlena McElroy is going to bring to us right after this break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Mr. Babers Neighbors, bringing us back to our conversation here on Fallon Forum. Thanks for sticking around for segment number 2. We've got quite a diversity of programming to cover today. I do want to thank, in addition to Babers Neighbors, I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our program. Later in the show, Ying Sa with Community CPA joining us to tackle those tough tax questions. It's that time of the year, I'm afraid, folks, and we need to start thinking about how we're going to get our tax forms filed. But I want to welcome Darlena McElroy to the show. Darlene is somebody I've known for a long, long time. And her attorney, Sandra Quilty. I got the name right, do I?
Suarez Quilty.
Suarez
yes.
Quilty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And they months ago, Darlena brought to my attention a very troubling problem involving the Department of Human Services. Basically, it's a very complicated situation, as they always are. But basically, they've made her dad a ward of the state, and this has created a whole domino effect of trouble and problems for her and her family that are almost, to my mind, unfathomable. And I say that as somebody who worked a lot on DHS issues as a state legislator who was on the Human Services Committee for 4 years, in fact. So I'm very troubled by this. And again, Darlena, somebody I've known a long time, I guess 20 plus years. You were our church secretary for a long time. You're about as upstanding a citizen as I can imagine. Again, welcome to the show. I'm sorry I have to welcome you under these circumstances, but give us a little bit of background on what's going on and why this is important to people.
Well, first off, what's going on is my 86-year-old father is being detained in Polk County against his will, basically. My father is a 50-year native of Fort Dodge community, here in Des Moines visiting myself on an extended visit last year, and helping him with finances. You know, I saw some discrepancies and saw some credit card charges, on his credit card bill. So an adult protective report was made, which brought in the DHS. DHS came in, started an investigation, alleged that his grandchildren, were under investigation for some of the discrepancies we were finding.
And they had been causing some mischief.
Yes, they had. And then, it progressed on for months, saying that it was under investigation. My father would have to remain here in Polk County until their investigation concluded. And that really wasn't the case. Instead of investigating those grandchildren, they were underhandedly making my father a ward. They took custody of my father. I mean,
you said they were working on, they were going through the process of making him a ward of the state prior to even telling you about it.
Right.
Yeah. There was, in working with Darlena and her family, and as you said, Ed, Darlena is an upstanding citizen. She's also had, she's a placement for foster cares for many
daycare as well.
That's right, for many years, working directly with the state and some of the players at hand. And what we have here is exactly as Darlena has described. A call was made, an inquiry was made based on her intimate relationship with DHS, and as a result, she and her family, and certainly Mr. McElroy, have completely been snowballed, and now...
And again, you made the call, Darlena.
Well, actually, I made the call through Alzheimer's hotline.
Right, but that,
it was,
to try to do something helpful for your father, given the the problems he was experiencing with the grandkids.
Right.
That's right. And ultimately, DHS told Darlena that until they were going to displace him physically, although he wasn't an actual dependent under the Iowa Code, they were going to displace him and put him in her care, in her home, temporarily until the matters were resolved against these family members. Ultimately, it became, we're nearly at 8 months now, and we can't get him home. The charges have been dropped. There have been no founded cases of any abuse, let alone dependent adult abuse, any evidentiary hearing substantiating that he was at the time a dependent, and certainly no evidentiary hearing making him incapacitated.
Now, when someone becomes a ward of the state, it's because they are incapable of caring for themselves and they have no other close family members who are deemed capable of providing that care. That's a general description. I think that's reasonably accurate.
That is correct. That is our understanding as well.
And again, your dad, he's got some issues. He's 86.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some dementia, I believe.
Yes.
But he lives on his own at Beaverdale Estates.
Yes.
It's not. The Beaverdale Estates is not assisted living.
It is not. He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
So
there are a lot of people out there who are worse off than that in terms of being able to care for themselves. And then beyond that, he's got you and I guess some other family members, hopefully not the grandkids, but I mean some other family members who are capable of providing care. So I'm baffled as to why the state thinks it has to come in and declare this man their property, essentially, their responsibility when he is taking care of himself and has family members who can help.
Absolutely.
I don't get that.
Well,
what am I missing?
Well, what are we missing? That's absolutely right. And on Friday, the only alternative this family and this poor man has is legal recourse. They are state-appointed individuals that are absolutely unwilling to work and cooperate with his family to get this man home and to serve his best interests. Allegations have been made. A very, very threatening statements have been made towards Darlena and myself included, and nothing has come to fruition. We simply want to be able to take him home. He should not be a ward of the state. We just plead with anyone and everyone that can assist her and her family in getting him home.
Folks, we're talking with Darlena McElroy about her conflict with the Department of Human Services. With her is her attorney, Sandra Juarez Quilty. You're welcome to join the conversation if you like at 244-0077, 244-0077, or you can also email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. So right now, the way it stands, they have declared your dad, Darlena, a ward of the state. They have seized his home in Fort Dodge.
They're attempting to
seize his home in Fort, and nobody lives in the home right now.
No.
But he would be capable of living there, providing somebody could keep the grandkids out of the way. And
as he was,
right. But you've been paying the utility bills. What is happening on that front? Is the state moving forward with trying to seize the property?
They are. They're trying to liquidate all of his assets.
His car, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, my mind is really having a hard time grasping this. I mean, is this a scene from 1984? I'm not the year, but the book.
Well, and as you may recall, Ed, especially with your history in the legislature, there was a similar case that occurred a couple years ago with the family, the Queener family.
Yes,
and
Robert Queener, I believe.
That's right.
Yes, okay.
And in that case, as I've looked at the court record, they actually had more opportunity for involvement by attorneys, contested hearings, that kind of thing. In this case, this poor family has lost their father to nothing but protective order filed and continued since June 6th of last year. And all that has been stated on the record is clear and convincing evidence of X with no substantiated evidence whatsoever in the record to support it.
Now, let me ask you, I think a lot of folks who get involved in DHS work are very well intentioned. They want to do the right thing. They care about people they're trying to help. But something really seems to have gone wrong here. I do know that when I worked on this stuff all the time in the legislature, there were workers who became too aggressive, that determined that something had to happen, and then kind of put the facts behind them and just barged forward. But what really, I mean, I always like to try to assume the best in everybody, and the best in even an organization as big, as far-reaching as the DHS. But what do you think is going on here? What really is behind their efforts to absolutely, ruin your family?
In my personal opinion, I think this is a case of eminent domain. My father's property, he owns a corner lot as well as his home, sits just across the street from the Iowa Central Community College Industries building in Fort Dodge. I mean, it's a personal opinion. I have no fact to back that up. But for the state to come after this house the way that they have, that's the only solution I can think.
And you raise a very, very good point. We have no idea. We've received nothing but mere allegations against Darlena and criminal, civil alike, and nothing that they have brought nothing forward but mere allegations, and have given us no real opportunity to resolve the misunderstandings.
But part of your problem now is that this has gone beyond the DHS and it's into the court system.
Unfortunately, and I have email after email after email from the state office, the prosecutor's office, saying, file away whatever you need to do at this point.
With the state prosecutor or Polk County prosecutor?
No, it is being handled by the Polk County attorney,
okay.
the prosecutor here.
All right.
And we have been told repeatedly in email communication, file away. We have made it clear to you and your client that.
So they're kind of egging you on, or what? Are they?
Ed,
is that genuine encouragement?
I don't know. One good thing has occurred here in the last couple hours, where finally the guardian ad litem appointed by the state has shown a willingness to sit down and visit with us. The judge has told us again and again and again, work this out. We can't work it out without all of us coming to the table and having a forthright and transparent, honest dialogue.
And again, part of the domino effect of this is not just that your dad is now, at risk of losing his property, but you're at risk of losing your child care and your foster care license, which is that's how you make your living.
That's right.
And you've been doing that for
Absolutely.
a long time.
Yes.
So, and has the DHS or the courts actually told you that they are pursuing the possibility of removing those from you?
They have not. I've just been threatened with criminal investigations, is what I've been told. Pending criminal investigations.
And allegations of dependent adult abuse
Yes.
with regard to financial exploitation, which again,
That's remarkable to me.
I understand with her history, and certainly every character reference that I have been given, called, everything on behalf of this woman. It's just been excruciating to watch what's happening to her personally, and certainly her father and her family.
So there are three branches of government, of course: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And it seems like you've got two of them working against you right now: the executive and the judicial. Are you getting any help at all from the legislative branch, from members of the state legislature, perhaps some of the local lawmakers, perhaps some from Fort Dodge? Is there any help there at all in terms of trying to give you a fair hearing?
I have reached out to several legislators.
Some of whom have visited with your
yes,
father.
Some, yes. Personally had conversation with my father. They just shook their head. I said, this is the incompetent, physically and mentally incapacitated man that DHS says, can do nothing more than sit and stare off into space. But yet, he lives independently on his own. His meals are provided at Beaverdale Estates. But other than that,
completely self-sufficient.
Yeah, he's completely self-sufficient. He calls me from his cell phone. I visit him almost daily.
Yeah.
And we've also received support from both of the doctors involved in this case, allowing him to, at least if they feel they have a case at the state level and they want more time to try to reach something there, allow him to do this at home with family members and in a comfortable environment versus as an involuntary award. And aside from the cost this must have on the state,
Yeah. My experience, too, is that if a lawmaker truly wants to help, he or she can make a big difference. State agencies will bend over backwards to keep lawmakers from making too much noise or to keep them from getting too upset. Not only do they control the purse strings for all state agencies, except for the DOT, but they also, have a much bigger microphone. So again, and this is this is perhaps the first time you've dialogued publicly with somebody in the media about this.
That's true.
I would strongly encourage you not to make it your last.
Thank you.
In fact, I think if that's really the fourth house of government: executive, legislative, judicial, and the press. It's not really the government, but it's the fourth means of which we have to put pressure on the system to do the right thing. And when the others fail, this is where you turn to. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope that this conversation. I hope people take time to look at. If you've listened to this show live, great. Go back and review the podcast. It'll be up later today. Maybe something in there will jar you to take some action. Again, there are plenty of people like Darlena out there. Again, I'm not saying too that the DHS it does the wrong thing all the time. A lot of times they're doing good things that help people, that keep people from ending up in situations that are abusive. But there are times when the wheels fall off, when things don't work right, and this is so clearly one such time. I don't know why the DHS is continuing to pursue it in this direction. I don't know why the courts can't say, "Whoa, let's slow down." And it does sound like the judge is saying, "Let's slow down a little bit and try to get a resolution here." So that's good.
We're certainly hopeful. Again, we have a hearing on the 8th. It is a hearing that the state has requested to enforce the protective order that's in place. We are doing everything we can to get on file our objections to that in 15 minutes. And with what little time this family has had to air any objection in this contested case, we have our challenges, certainly.
Yeah. Well, good luck. And again, please keep us posted.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Folks, when I come back, we'll be talking with Yingsa with Community CPA. I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. Massive burritos, folks. Fighting Burrito, located on 13th Street, just south of Locust Ave in the Nationwide building. A fairly new restaurant here in Des Moines. Again, for $6.50, you can get a great burrito. You can build it yourself or get some very creative burritos that are designed and named after wonderful social activist candidates like Jesse Owens and Harvey Milk and Susan B. Anthony. These are clever names and very tasty burritos. Check them out, folks. That's Fighting Burrito at the corner of 13th and Locust. Join the fight, and I'll be back in a minute talking about tax issues.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
Since 1994, Sid's Catering has graced Des Moines area events with quality service and rave reviews. Owner Sid Cohn's culinary career began with a Northeast Iowa vacation home for international clientele. Sid earned a Bachelor of Science in Hotel Restaurant Management and was the assistant clubhouse manager at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Sid has a passion for fresh, local products and offers a wide range of options, including vegan, gluten-free, and ethnic. Mention the Fallon Forum when you book your breakfast or lunch event and get 10% off. Contact Sid's Catering at 208-2091. That's Sid's Catering at 208-2091.
This is Dr. Holding of the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you, Max Wellman, for kicking off this final segment of the Fallon Forum today. Max Wellman, Max Wellman's trio, performing two concerts on Valentine's Day, one at 7, one at 9, both at the 4th Street Theater. A little bit of a tongue twister, lots of THs in that. 4th Street Theater, check them out, folks. I think it's only like $10 a ticket, and tickets may be going, so do give them a shout. I want to thank Community CPA for sponsoring this segment of our show. We're trying to get Ying Sa on the phone here, folks, working on that. But there are plenty of other things that I think we need to talk about, and I'm hoping to get some guests on this subject. In particular, I would like to hear from Tom Vilsack. Vilsack has been a guest on this program a couple times. Even though Tom and I tend to disagree a lot on some issues, I respect the man's intelligence. He's brilliant, and he's also very responsive. That is unusual sometimes, a politician who actually responds. And I'm keeping track of folks at the State House and who responds and who doesn't. And you know what? I actually have a harder time getting Democrats to respond to phone calls and email messages. Although Dan Kelly, obviously phenomenal. Rob Hogue, great. We had Jack Hatch on the show recently. All that very much appreciated because again, folks, folks deserve to be a part of what goes on in state government, and we're not going to do that unless we hear from you. Okay, so I want to talk about the report on climate change out of put out by the USDA. I did not see this coming, but apparently this analysis released just yesterday, I believe, by the USDA. It says that climate change could drastically affect agriculture, forcing farmers and ranchers to alter where they grow crops and costing them millions of dollars in additional costs to tackle weeds, pests, diseases, and whatnot. I have some concerns about what kind of varieties they're going to start switching to deal with the increased drought and whatnot. We'll see. Again, I'm trying to get Secretary Vilsack on the program to talk about this. There's a lot more detail to it. Again, we saw last year was the warmest year on record, and we saw the temperature was 1 degree warmer than any other previous year. That is astounding, and something that we've got to take very, very seriously. All right, let's go to the phone lines here and welcome Ying Sa to the program. Hello, Ying.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You're running a little late today.
I am so sorry. Just like IRS, I'm running late.
Well, if the IRS is collecting money, then I guess people don't mind it running late, right?
Well, the due date is still April 15, so
April
you
15.
still have a penalty interest to pay beyond that. So
right. Well, hey, a couple questions for you. The As a business owner myself, I'm very interested in issues relevant to how small businesses can best utilize the tax code when filing their returns. What do you think? What do you have to say about that generally and about business expenses?
All right. And the business expenses, I want everybody to keep in mind two things. And number one, the expenses you can deduct is really what you can put together. So you really have to save receipts and knows where money went. And that's number one. So you must have the actual prove that money was spent for business expense. But the second one is really related to how to make that expense to be a tax-saving tools. So sometimes certain expenses you decided to push it off to the future to deduct, or you want to depreciate it to each year,
right,
or you want to take it in to deduct it all at this year. That's really, that decision is made based on how much taxes you are going to pay.
So you have some flexibility.
Overall consideration, right?
Yeah, so you have flexibility there, and you basically determine what to do based on how it pans out best for you as a small business person.
Right. A different tax preparer has a different philosophies, and
Right.
for me, I always look at today's benefit. And as you know, the tax code and the incentives are changing from time to time, and especially recent years, the tax code was utilized fully by government to do certain things to the economy.
Right.
And with this kind of change, how much of a stability to the future you have? Not much. So you want to take advantage of whatever you can today. So my philosophy for tax saving, it is not about saving $10 to the future and let's not deduct this $1 today. My philosophy is reversed. And I deduct today's $1 and I think about what happens 10 years later.
Well, I think it makes sense because tax law is always changing. I mean, they're always coming in and tweaking the system, whether it's at the state level or the federal level. I mean, and that's one reason too. I think it's important to have somebody, especially if you've got something. If you're a small business owner, you've got something to lose if you do it wrong. If they have to audit you and come after you, you want to have somebody who understands all those new changes, all those different levels of variations that are always on the move.
If you run a business, you know that if you are in business, not everybody can do a show like you do. So we all have specialties. If you're really specialized in your business, and you really should let the tax professionals to take care of your tax, because I can guarantee you, no one knows everything about the tax code, even tax professionals. But hopefully, we deal with that every day, and we hear it, we learn it, we get trained for it, so we do better job than ordinary people. Going for professional is absolutely the way for you to tap into all the tax saving that's available out there.
And I mentioned you earlier in my program. We were talking with Bill Owlett from the Mass Institute of Technology about a study showing that current U.S. immigration policy has hurt entrepreneurship. It was a good conversation, and Bill has some hope that the current debate on immigration policy might actually help small business owners. But I mentioned you as one example of someone who is an immigrant to our country, to our state, who has taken her energy, her passion, her ability, and made it into a very successful business. I believe and I want to make sure I had this right. I said you were the 15th largest accounting firm in Iowa, correct?
Yes, that was by November 2010's data.
And chances are you might have grown a bit since then.
I am pretty sure, yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud.
Yeah, again, but you don't get to be the 15th largest accounting firm in the state without doing a good job. So again, I've been a very satisfied customer myself, and I appreciate that you have sometimes found errors in the past. Prior to me having you working on my books, found errors that have allowed me to achieve some refunds. So I've appreciated that.
So other than we have this philosophy we serve for today, and the other thing we really do here is that we are a very calculating people, and I calculate. So I want to make sure that things works in my head first before we put on the paper. So, and that all helps. It's just a habit of living a life, right? So you're just calculating.
Yeah. So one other question that comes to my mind too. I know a lot of folks who have kids think about how they claim their children as a deduction. Are there any changes or any specific things we need to be aware of if we are parents with kids who are claiming those kids on our taxes?
There really isn't any changes, but there is heightened compliance related to that, and not so much related to people who grow up here and are born here. We have our Social Security number, and we don't really have much of an issue related to child tax credit. But right now, the biggest issue at IRS level is the people who actually have IT numbers and they don't live in United States, but they are based on the NAFTA free trade agreement, and Canadians and the Mexicans, they can claim their dependent, the kids, on the tax return, even though they are not living in U.S. And so when the tax preparer check the box of the kids are in the country or outside of the country, if they forgot to ask that question, the program defaulted into they live here, then they got $1,000 they shouldn't. So there's some mistakes like that IRS is very aware of, and people just need to know that you only get tax child credit when your child live here and consume food and goods and the expenses here.
Right.
Then you get that credit kind of supplement to your expenses.
Gotcha.
But not to the kids are out of the country.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah. All right, well, hey, this is all good stuff. Ying's going to be with us, folks, from time to time to answer tax questions and just to provide an update on again, changes that you need to know about as you file. And again, this program is an alternative to the very narrow agenda that you will find on the radio dial. Again, most of the talk shows you'll find these days are national, and even the couple local ones that are on big commercial stations have a very, very narrow perspective that is way to the political right. So if you want an alternative, some balance, this is the program for you, folks. This and Bradshaw and a few others. And again, I appreciate the local businesses like Ying Sa's business, Community CPA, that help make this possible. So we're going to hear from Ying from time to time, again, not just because she's a great supporter of this program, but because she has some really good information, and she can help you file your taxes in a way that can help you avoid problems in the future and also get the best bang for your buck. She has done it for me. Ying, my only complaint is I hate forms and paperwork so much that when it comes to having to pour over those receipts and get all that ready for you, I that's like pulling teeth to me. I have to really steel myself and sit down and just say, okay, I got to do this. I'm not getting out of this chair until I'm done with this.
Right,
I would
but
rather.
If you save all of that work into one shot, that become a real burden to you. And I would advise you to take a one-night break and have a glass of wine and sit there and say, I'm going to sort out the receipt. But if you do it all the time as a habit, just put the receipt all on your left pocket and empty it out every month into a folder, and then that is already a good organization. We don't ask people to become accountant before they can file taxes with us. But what we are asking people to do is to have a good habit of saving proofs.
See, and I think I think I've done that. So I may be at least maybe it'll only take one glass of wine and not two.
You have improved over the years. That you have to give yourself credit.
Okay.
You have done a great job, and I don't, just take away that psychological burden of being not good, because I think you are good, and you plan it, and you know that you need to save receipts, and those are very essential steps. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ying. I really appreciate it, and I especially appreciate guests who tell me that I'm doing a good job. That doesn't always happen, All right, folks. Thank you, Ying, for joining us. And if you'd like to get in touch with Ying Sa, with Community CPA and Associates, you can reach her. She's at 3816 Ingersoll Ave, just west of downtown Des Moines. Again, set up an appointment. Get your taxes done right. Don't take the chance of doing them yourself, or you might run the risk of that not working out real well. Number to call, 288-3188, 288-3188. That's CPA at communitycpa.com if you want to send Ying or her staff an email, CPA at communitycpa.com. Ying, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, Ed. Thank
All
you
right.
for the listeners.
You're welcome. Folks, tomorrow I'm going to be talking with State Representative Dan Kelly, our weekly look at the Iowa State House. We're also going to be talking with David Osterberg, a former state representative and a former candidate for the U.S. Senate a long time ago, who now directs the Iowa Policy Project. We're going to talk about a new report released by the Iowa Policy Project relevant to taxation. It is challenging many of the assumptions that Governor Branstad is making as he moves forward on his property tax reduction bill. We'll get a perspective from David on that. We'll also talk with, this is a new feature, Nakisha Phillips is going to join me. She's a young mom, mom-to-be. She and her husband are first-time parents and using a midwife and having an interesting experience. We're going to get a brief update every week on the progress toward delivery. Stay tuned for Bradshaw, folks. He'll be with you from 1:30 to 2:30 today. I want to thank Webcast One Live for hosting the show. I want to remind folks that you can also hear the show as a podcast on my website. You can also hear it via something called Stitcher, which I know nothing about, which I'm sure my illustrious and youthful producer, Maddie Arrington, knows everything about, because young people tend to know about these things before us middle-aged folks do. Again, go to my website, check it out, see if there's a way that I can help promote the good work you're doing, either through your organization, if you've got an event, or if you've got a small business that is doing good work. Again, let's work together. We've got to try to create an alternative to what you find in here on the commercial airwaves. Again, thanks so much for sticking around, folks. I will be back tomorrow.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it,